I am Mary Medley, CEO of the Colorado Society of CPAs. I am joined by my colleagues, Tiffany Carson, who is behind the logo on your screen, and Stacy Svensson, who is the staff person, along with Daryl Moorhead, who supports all of you all in the chapter areas. As I said previously, we are delighted to have you with us for this first presentation in our new succession series planned especially for chapter members. Chris has graciously agreed to talk today about planning for what comes next. And we asked him about that because he is officially, as of 2019, CEO of Dalby Wendland, based in Grand Junction, but with offices across the Western Slope. Chris has been with the firm for 26 years. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I think we would call you homegrown, right? Because you got your accounting degree at Colorado Mesa University before it was called Colorado Mesa.
Yeah, it was Mesa State College at that point, a lot different 26 years ago.
Yeah, he is a tax professional, a consummate professional in the accounting profession, and an expert in a wide range of subject areas. In addition, he serves as an expert witness. Most importantly, he and his firm have been very intentional about their succession planning, and that's why he is your person for all the things you would want to know and are important for you to know when it comes to how you work these kinds of things out. So Chris, with that, please take it away.
Well, Mary, I appreciate that. That's a wonderful introduction, and I don't know if I deserve all those nice comments, but thank you, and it's good to be with you all today. I certainly gave some thought to kind of how I would approach this conversation, and I'll share screen here in a moment. I've got just a couple PowerPoint slides, a slide deck to kind of keep us on track, but I gave some thought about kind of our transformation as a firm, and I certainly kind of come to you today and a fellow CPAs and members of the COCPA, not as a guru on this topic, but certainly as someone I think of this, sharing some of our journey that we're currently going through. And when I say current, I mean, as we speak, we're making a transformational type change here at Dalby from what I would call a lack of a one firm mindset historically to certainly a one firm minded firm. And I think that ties in directly to the succession planning topic today and partner transitions. So I'm sharing in kind of in a spirit of vulnerability and transparency in what we're going through right now, and not saying that we've hit every home run or we've done everything perfectly. We've not. We're continuing to learn, and you'll certainly see that throughout this presentation. So with that, I'm going to share screen, and this is probably the hardest part of the whole presentation, right? Let me do this, and hopefully you see first slide up there, succession series and planning for successful partner transitions. If not, someone yell at me.
We see it.
All right. Yeah, and throughout these slides, if you see the word partner or principal, we use the word principal here because we're a corporation, and I put the slide deck together relatively quickly, and so I might have some words that are interchangeable there. If you see partner, you see principal, we're really talking about the same thing. But it started off here with kind of this idea of building a transferable legacy. And that's a term we use quite often in our leadership circles here at Dalby Wendland & Company. From our outside consultants who have been working with us for years now on our succession planning, as well as just other governance issues as a firm. Building a transferable legacy is something we as a partner group or a principal group here at Dalby kind of hold near and dear. We believe that as a principle of our firm, building that transferable legacy and doing the things and modeling the behaviors that go towards building a transferable legacy are very important. are what makes, a principal, and what ultimately leads to the success of the firm and the ability and even necessity to pay out a retiring partner for that legacy that was built inside the firm. And so when partner retires, building a transferable legacy is essentially evaluated, all throughout the career, but certainly at that time. And if that transferable legacy was built, then the firm needs to make payments to the partner to essentially, buy out that legacy that was created. So that's kind of just a big picture concept. We'll kind of end there on the slide deck when we talk about kind of buyout plans and how we do it in the form of deferred compensation. But I wanted to have that term there, building a transferable legacy. You'll see it a few more times and hear that throughout our talk here today. So I wanted to share, hit the slide deck's not moving. Give me a second here. There we go. A bit of a delay. So as I mentioned, we're certainly going through some transformational change, and kind of building our one firm mindset here at Dalby Winland and Company. And I believe I saw Megan here on the call. Megan's with our firm. Megan certainly hears that term and a lot inside of our firm, and in the way we talk and how we communicate as a partner group. And in the firm, we always use the term one firm and having a one firm mindset. And it's certainly an evolutionary process, not a revolutionary process. We know it takes time, and we've been at this for quite a few years. And so coming at it with a guns blazing, let's charge in and make very quick change has not been our mindset. That might be the right mindset for some, but for us, it's been more of an evolutionary process, knowing that it's going to take time and thought and discussion and debate. And so the one firm mindset, I think, goes directly towards successful transitions and succession planning for partners. And we're certainly very, very much in tune with one firm, constantly learning as well on how to make that happen. Transformational change is hard, but worth it. And I can speak to how difficult it is to make transformational change, but we're starting to see a lot of the benefits, and it's certainly worth making those hard steps and those hard decisions to be one firm minded as a regional multi-office CPA firm. Moving away from book of business, and I think this is key. And we've had numerous conversations with our consultants as well as just internally about how a book of business mindset, which is very ingrained in our profession over many years and decades, as a way to compensate partners and a way to operate as partners within a firm. Really moving away from that, I think, is key, and focusing on other disciplines and performance metrics and behaviors at the ownership level that are very important for building that one firm minded organization. So moving away from book of business is important. Having a stewardship mindset with clients at the partner level, especially. What does that mean? A stewardship mindset means the client is a client of the firm, not my client. We try to catch ourselves when we use the term, "Oh, this is my client." It's the firm's client. It's our client. And a stewardship mindset with clients means, how can I attach other people and other services and solutions to this client? Involve other partners, involve other expertise within the firm or outside the firm. How can I be the best steward for the client? And that means, not monitoring the client again as my client so closely that you have to filter other partner involvement with that client. And that's a key concept of stewardship. Stewardship means, what can I do to get as many hooks of the firm into the client in terms of people and process and our team members and people who are just amazing here at Dalby Winland & Company. So having a stewardship mindset is important with clients. That keeps clients sticky to the firm and not to the partner. We develop partners as a firm. I think that's a key element too, that we're honestly trying to even change in our mindset here at Dolby. And we're all hands on deck when it comes to developing partners, and having that mindset, I think, is important. It's not just up to the CEO. It's not just up to one or two partners or the board of directors or a certain office or a certain geographical office or service line. It's up to all the partners to live and breathe and model the behaviors of a one firm-minded partner. And we develop partners as a group and not just as lone rangers. So, and then finally, building a transferable legacy. There, that term is again, having that mindset of, if a career at a firm like ours needs to involve building value within the firm. That means when clients, as you build clients, as you build people, the partner retires. If clients and people were to leave when the partner leaves, then a value hasn't been created within the firm. And so that's what transferable legacy means to us. Are you creating value within the firm through sticky clients, developing great people, and community connections, additional services within the firm, whatever that is? We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide or two. But building a transferable legacy is very key. I did a copy and paste out of one of our matrix that we use here. In fact, this is even brand new. I haven't yet to even get rolling out a lot of this to the firm, but we've just recently established, and I know Megan's on this call. She probably hasn't even heard this yet. Megan's hearing this for the first time. But we've established an income principle, equity principle. That's very common in our industry. Many of the firms on this call already have that in place. We're just now putting that in place. We've had something similar in our history in terms of an equity principle or an income principle position, but that's something we're newly establishing, kind of in that effort to allow for another position or level, if you will, prior to equity principle that is engaging to those up and comers that may not have equity principle or the full partner, full equity principle career as part of their career goals or life goals. And so I won't read this to you, and I'll let it sit here and you can read it if you want, but this is kind of our overall kind of how we the distinction between an income principle and equity principle and kind of the overall mindset. And if I just start with equity, the equity principle, again, we kind of right off the bat, this is talking about transferable legacy. Equity principles demonstrate the ability to build a transferable legacy in the area of building clients, developing clients, developing people, creating new service lines, and heavily involved in our service mix, maybe adding another service to the mix of services of the firm, maybe doing great things within the operational side of the firm, making the firm better in many different ways. That's building a transferable legacy. And an equity principle is very much doing that, and it's evident and it's consistent. And that's what we look at as a performance metric or a key quality of what we would call an equity principle in our firm. I kind of like what we put in here as far as the mindset. Equity principles begin to move away from selling themselves to selling something bigger than themselves. It's not about them, it's about the firm. And so selling and introducing and building up other people and services and being very active and consistent with that is important. And really passing off clients to other people and then regenerating more work is really key. I mean, we're trying to really embrace that idea of a high-performing equity principle in our firm is someone that not necessarily grabs a hold of a bunch of clients and makes them their clients and they're the only service partner for the history of that client. They're a partner. We stress the need to pass off that work to others, to allow others to grow, to get other people introduced to the client. And so a high-performing principal or partner to us certainly looks like someone who brings in work develops great people to attach to that work, and then allows others to run with it so that partner can go do it again. So that's a concept that is kind of near and dear to us. And I'll say it's something we're going through now. It's one of those evolutionary changes we're going through and having discussions about, and some of those discussions are hard. It's not something we can say that we've lived and breathed for the history of our firm. This is a change for us. Equity principles are highly collaborative. That's a word in our profession we use a lot, and I think it's appropriate that we use it. And it's a collaborative partners, going back to that first slide, the stewardship mindset. How can I collaborate? And collaborate is not just keeping somebody else in the loop, or getting someone involved in a very maybe small piece of a client because of certain expertise. It's truly collaborating with other expertise and partners within the firm to provide holistic services to that client and really make an impact to a client. And doing that in a brainstorming, high trust way around the client is what a collaborative principle looks like. So that's how we define equity principle. You'll see the comparison to income principle is somewhat subjective in that we believe income principle should be doing a lot of the same thing. It's just not as evident or demonstrable as an equity principle. And so that's the tough job of the compensation committee and our board of directors in admitting income principles and equity principles to look at the assessment process, which we'll talk about briefly here in a second, and determine kind of what differentiates any individual within the firm as an income principle or equity principle. So I put a note down at the bottom here, something unique to Dalby I wanted to share, because I talked to a lot of other firms and managing partners, and they always seem surprised about our practice for a long time. Actually, at Dalby, this is something that is not new, but we allow our managers to buy into the company at a 500 share level. So it's significantly lower than our income principle or equity principle levels, but we allow our managers to buy in. And I think that's a great succession tool to use, that it gets our younger up and comers who are doing well and in the manager role to be offered shares of stock, allows them to kind of see the financials of the firm, to attend shareholder retreats and shareholder meetings. And there's some financial incentive in there too that I won't get into the weeds on, but that's something that's been a very successful tool for us to offer shares of stock to our manager group and kind of bring them up into the ranks that way. So I'll move on to the next slide. It all comes down to partner compensation. I apologize, this might be kind of busy of a slide, but I put some bullet points in here kind of from a document that I have as we think about partner compensation. Again, it's important to reward the right behaviors, especially at the partner level. And so kind of our thoughts around partner compensation, some of these are kind of my own thoughts that I'm even kind of interjecting in our partner meetings and board meetings, but kind of one, strive to increase the firm bonus pool, not just my personal bonus pool. And so a compensation system must kind of be focused on not only the performance and the results of the individual partner. That's important, and that we'll talk a little bit on the next slide. But is it focused on raising the boat for everybody? Are you focused? Are you firm focused? Not just your service line as a partner, not your office or maybe the team that you lead. That's important, but are you firm focused, one firm focused, and interested in and completely focused in increasing the overall pie, making the pie bigger, which raises the boat for everybody. Move away from managed billings as the primary measure of determining compensation. I mentioned that earlier. In tying compensation to key areas of discipline or even performance, and keeping it simple. I know we're accountants. We can get kind of crazy sometimes with how complex we make anything. And compensation systems can be no different. But we try to have a mix of both, financial and non-financial in our performance systems and how we're thinking about compensation. We don't like to be formulaic with bonus structures, and that means that there has to be subjectivity, which as human beings, that we are all subjective, and that's an important part of the process. But it's okay to have subjectivity when it comes to determining compensation, and so that's part of what we're putting in place right now as we evaluate partners. And tying partner performance and goals to compensation. A compensation system encourages partners to do the right things. Identifying tiers of partner compensation and providing tier transparency. Essentially, this means, we're gonna have a system, and I'll jump down to the bottom of this screen. Fair does not mean equal, and so a system that compensates partners equally just because everybody owns the same number of shares or partnership interests or whatever it might be, in my opinion and our opinion, is not kind of the compensation system we're trying to build and we're kind of latching onto. We kind of believe in this concept of there is a difference between builders and maintainers, and while both builders and maintainers are needed in the firm, the compensation should be different and be reflected and almost weighted towards those that are building. Again, not just the rainmakers. Rainmaking is part of it, and then bringing in new clients, but who is building not only clients and new business, but also people. Who is providing the leadership to develop people in the next group of partners. Who is thinking about adding service lines and instrumental in starting that new service line or opening up a new market, or getting us implemented with some great technology that makes the firm better and more efficient. Those are all things that are builder versus maintainer mindsets, and that's something we talk openly and honestly about, and again are not easy conversations sometimes when we talk builder versus maintainer. But our compensation system is being developed and being implemented with that mindset that there is a range of compensation that should mimic the range of performance, and not everybody is paid the same. Those that perform higher will be paid more through the compensation system. So why am I talking about compensation system when it comes to a succession planning topic? Well, I think they go hand in hand. Honestly, because partner compensation needs to tie to behaviors, and behaviors need to go to, are we doing the things as partners, as owners of the firm, that are one firm minded and are in the best interest of the firm in terms of its succession and its longevity. So I think the root of all of this come down to partner compensation and how you evaluate partners on their performance to determine that compensation. So using a closed compensation system between 10 and 15 partners as a rule of thumb, I've kind of heard a lot, and we've latched onto. We're a firm of 12 full equity principals, and then we have some income principals behind that, and some manager shareholders, as I mentioned too. But we have 12 full equity principals, and the system that we are currently implementing is going to be a closed system, meaning the partners don't know what the other partners make in terms of compensation. And that's many different schools of thought on that, but that's what we're adopting here at our firm. And accept the fact that some and possibly much of the system will be subjective. I mentioned that earlier. No formulas. Subjectivity is part of the process. And when you're evaluating leadership and team and people development and and client management. That's going to take, a subjective process involving your peers and your team, evaluating and assessing you as a partner on an annual basis. Which leads me to the next slide, principal assessments. And it's just a kind of high level slide, but I mentioned that we are, probably I mentioned it too much now, but we are going through this process. This is all brand new to us, meaning, for the first time in our firm's history, we have established and will be going through a compensation committee process. It's the last bullet on this slide. We have set up our first compensation committee, and we'll be executing, that process in a one firm-minded way this year, in the months to come. And so, just emphasizing that again, we're not a guru on this process. We are on the journey with you all in trying to better our firm and be one firm-minded in our succession planning. But at the top of this slide, when it comes to our an experience requirement for income principals and equity principals, or really any level within the firm for that matter, we try not to have it takes 15 years to become an equity principal, or if you're an income principal, you have to wait for 2 years before you become an equity principal, or it takes X number of years and experience to become a manager and own stock in the company. We're trying to move away from any discussion about a number of years that it takes to achieve a certain level. If somebody can fast track and through their performance and their development, they can achieve success within our firm, that's great. We want to reward that. We're going to recognize that, and we don't want to wrap some required time frame around that. So I just wanted to make that clear as something that we've embraced over the last few years. Both income and equity principals participate in an annual assessment process and are assessed in the following areas. And so, obviously there's a lot behind each of these bullets, but I'm just talk briefly about kind of these 7 areas that our principals and income and equity principals will be evaluated on an annual basis. Work managed being one, and that kind of comes along with a financial performance scorecard. So we will have a scorecard that shows the work that's being managed. We're very intentionally avoiding the word book of business, but we use the word work managed because we know that we have partners that are managing work and trying to collaborate with other partners and build teams around clients. Since we use the word or phrase work managed. And then the financial performance scorecard, which, as you can imagine, probably goes into a lot of things. It'll have billing, days in billing, data. It'll have realization factors. All the typical things that you might have when evaluating, a financial performance for a partner's. I was about to say book of business, but I caught myself. A partner's work managed list, let's call it. And some of the factors, though, that we'll have in that financial scorecard will be pulling information out of our practice management system that starts to tell us how collaboration is working amongst the partner group. And so we think we can do that through some creative usage of our system to gather data about how much charge time from partners that are across the firm that aren't necessarily connected to the partner number 2's work managed list. How much involvement is happening amongst the partner group with the clients. That starts to tell us on a numbers basis what collaboration is happening across the partner group. So financial performance and scorecard is an important first step in that evaluation or assessment process. Client management is part of the assessment process. Business development and community involvement is obviously one, and we have certain benchmarks that we like to think about in terms of business development, but we also want to cater to partner strengths. We have some partners that are good rainmakers, others that's not their expertise, and that's okay. Remember, we build a legacy in many different ways. It's not always rainmaking. It's building people. It's building process. It's building legacy within the firm, and that's not always in the form of new business. People and team development is huge. And I'll just run through these. Organizational, operational development is another assessment area, leadership and governance. And then we have our shareholder promises, which we've developed over a lot of years. It's promises that we as shareholders make. It's a list that we keep on the wall and like to remind ourselves about certain things that we want to do, have fun, create a journey for our people, have a high level of trust, respect, and responsibility when it comes to our teams. Those are some of the shareholder promises that we try to live by. So on these bullets, these 7 bullets I just mentioned, how we do that will be a 360-degree assessment process where our partners will be evaluated by their peers. 3 to 4 of their peer partners will complete an assessment based on these 7 pillars of performance. We will have an upward evaluation from the team that is a whole different survey type of evaluation that really will kind of help the compensation committee understand the people and team development and leadership and shareholder promise element of that partner's performance. And as well as a downward evaluation that might be coming from me as the CEO evaluating, the partners, or maybe a service line leader that's evaluating other partners within that service line. And so, there's upward, peer, we even allow a self-assessment. All of that will kind of go into this compensation committee process where the compensation committee will assess performance and then provide, an award of compensation in the form of a bonus, and then also provide necessary counseling to that partner on how to make improvements, and kind of attaboys and attagirls for things well done, and then also, hey, here's what you could do to even improve your scores coming out of the assessment process. So this isn't much different than what a lot of firms will do, and what you hear a lot about balanced scorecard approaches or different pillars of performance that are very similar to what I've listed out here. But again, this is what we think is very critical to be able to do as a partner group, to evaluate ourselves in a peer and upward 360-degree type of way, to make sure we're doing the things to continue the legacy of the firm and tie directly to succession planning for the firm. So just lastly, this last slide I believe I have here to talk a little bit about our buyout process, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but again, we're in the midst of changing this as well. We've for a long time, in fact, since I've been at the firm, not probably for 20 years, so not my entire time at the firm, we've had a buyout plan. And it represents what might be typical in a lot of firms. It's a deferred compensation plan, and the one time I get to throw out an Internal Revenue Code section is in this on this slide. So 409A and a 409A plan, and for you tax gurus out there, that 409A is certainly a very onerous code section and body of law, and I've been up close and personal with 409A as it relates to our plan. And certainly you want to think hard as a firm before you execute on a deferred comp plan that's 409A governed. The complexity is very real, and the ability to change in the future, which is kind of what we're going through now. We're wanting to make some changes in how we in the framework of our plan. And 409A makes that very difficult. So I won't do any deep dive there, but that's a word of caution as you implement any deferred comp plan. 409A is a very real animal, and getting the right legal advice, tax advice is important. Outside consultants, I believe, are important. And you'll want to think about making it as simple as you can underneath the umbrella of 409A, because you never know in the future when you may think, oh, I wish we maybe could have done this or add this or tweak that. You may learn that 409A will say no. So I throw out caution when it comes to deferred compensation, but we have deferred compensation as our buyout plan model. We currently are in a valuation model, meaning that we value the firm and we kind of have accounts, if you will, that are on paper for the most part, that each partner has a value in their account based on the growth of the firm. And it gets complicated. I will not go into any deep dive there. But what we're really trying to think about is moving to a best practice. We've looked at and even talked to the Rosenberg organization. We submit our data to the Rosenberg survey every year and participate in Mark Rosenberg's survey. And I've talked to Mark and his team at times and other consultants as well. And you certainly see a lot of firms going to a multiple of compensation model, which is what we're really thinking hard about and possibly going to move to in the very near future. And that essentially means at the end of a partner's career, on the retirement date, an example might be you look back 5 years from that partner's retirement date and you take the best 3 compensation years out of the 5 years leading up to retirement. And that maybe average of those 3 years times 2.5 is a common multiple. I've seen 3, I've seen as low as 2. That formula then results in an amount that's paid out to the partner over typically a 10-year period is the norm. And that's paid out over 10 years, kind of representing a buyout of that partner's legacy or value created inside the firm. The valuation model is different in that it builds up an amount inside of a hypothetical account, if you will, and whatever's balances in that account gets paid out. So those are just 2 nuances between the 2 types of methods. I like the multiple of comp because I think it's simpler to understand and it involves some more flexibility. So we're currently in the valuation. We're trying to move to a multiple of comp, and can reiterate what I said at bullet number 1. 409A is kind of making that challenging for us to do, but we're finding our way through it. Some very key points though: incentivizing client transitions. Whatever buyout plan you have, or deferred comp model, or any other model, I think it is important to make sure that you're incentivizing the right transfer of work, and that partners are doing the right things during those years. And we have a 2-year requirement. Did the principal build a transferable legacy? And I always warn our partners that let's not rely on just the 2 years before retirement to introduce clients to other people within the firm. We need to be doing that all along, and our assessment system should be rewarding that and identifying that. But at a minimum, 2 years before retirement, we require that there needs to be a process and a communication and reporting to our board of directors about how clients are being transitioned and how people are being developed to take over the client work. The worst thing we want to have happen is have a partner retire and have $1 million worth of work walk out the door with the partner. And if that were to happen, kind of this clawback guy that I mentioned in parenthetically under bullet 3, our plan has a clawback provision in it that says if that were to happen, if that transition did not work out well, then we can reduce your deferred compensation balance. Whether in the valuation model or in the multiple of compensation model, we can take back or claw back an amount that we would otherwise pay to you as a retiring partner because of a lack of transition of not only clients, but of know-how, of people development. We have the ability to claw back. And so that's something you have to work through with your attorneys and make sure you're thinking about it correctly and have the necessary kind of language in the document. But that's important, again, to have that that there to make sure that you're not paying out a retiring partner a full value that ended up not staying within the firm. It's a kind of a worst case scenario for any firm, I would think. Our income principals and equity principals participate in the deferred comp plan. That's something that we like our income principals to do. Some firms don't have their income principals or non-equity principals participate in the buyout plan. We do. We feel that's a succession planning tool to have both layers of principal participate in the buyout plan. And then I mentioned earlier, we have a 10-year payout. So that's in a nutshell, rambling through our buyout plan. And it's a very lengthy document, and we could probably spend 2 days going over it. I usually have to spend 2 days every time I look at the document and try to figure something out. But succession planning is, we talk about succession planning with our clients, and especially our best clients as CPAs. We're talking to our clients about leaving that legacy, whether it's to their kids or to key employees, or maybe exiting the business by selling the company to an outside buyer. We're having those discussions with our clients all the time. And so sometimes we as CPAs kind of forget we need to be thinking about that ourselves as well. How we're not only working in the business, we're working on the business. And part of that working on the business means, how are we going to have a successful succession plan so the legacy continues on into the future for the next generation of leaders within our firm. So I kind of marry with that. I think that's 20 minutes left. I will open it up to questions or any other thoughts, commentary.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. Just to give everyone else a little bit of a context moment. The Wendland in Dalby, Wendland, I actually knew. He was still practicing when I joined the Colorado Society back in the 70s. But the firm is 74 years old this year, right? So you'll have 75th anniversary celebrations going on next year, I would imagine. And it's a name that has been a part of the Western Slope world for decades. Talk about a legacy. It is remarkable what you all have been able to do. And one of your colleagues from years ago, and I actually talked about your internal plan for how you develop principles and how you manage the succession plan and the building of the stewardship concept, as well as the legacy model, years ago. This is not something new to Dalby Wendland, but it's exciting to see how you are evolving it.
Yeah.
So, question for you. First of all, Amanda wants to know, will we distribute your slides? And I told her I would ask you if you are willing to share them. We will happily do that.
I don't see a problem with that, so I can get them to whoever I need to after the presentation.
That'd be great. So if you'll send them to Tiffany, we'll get them out to everyone.
Okay.
Remember, you can either raise your hand or you can post your question or your comment in the chat. So I have a first one for you, Chris. Dalby Wendland's a good size. And at least some of the people on this call are much, much smaller. How do you take what you all have created in a much larger firm, and what would you see as being applicable for a smaller firm?
Well, I certainly think the concepts of kind of the 7 pillars I had in the slide about partner performance, team and people development. I mean, that speaks to, are you being an empathetic leader? Are you coaching? Are you guiding? Are you training? In terms of client management, developing clients, adding services, providing solutions. In a smaller firm, obviously the collaboration is more challenging, right? Even I think of us as a firm with 24 owners, 12 full equity partners, 100 people total. It's still hard to collaborate as compared to a Moss Adams or an I Bailey, and those really very very good large firms that have a lot of different service lines and partners. So we're challenged as well, and kind of a reason why we've become a BDO Alliance firm is to have some of that backbone to be able to provide solutions to clients that we don't necessarily have the expertise. So some of the collaboration is outside the firm. And so I think for the smaller firm, thinking about some of those alliances, I think can be important. And BDO is just one of them, but there could be others. But then, yeah, I think walking the walk and talking the talk as a partner, whether you're in a large firm or small firm, when it comes to leadership, team and people development, and how you develop and make a huge impact to your client, I don't think changes based on the size of firm. Certainly buyout plans and how you assess partners. If you're a two-partner firm, that probably just looks like the two partners getting together over drinks, annually to determine you did a good job. Okay, you did a good job. Here's how we'll split the bonus pool. But I think a lot of the leadership and performance metrics to me go hand in hand with a large firm and same with a small firm.
Thank you. So you and I have talked before about the notion that you actually mentioned in your remarks as well, that you're looking to shift from it's all about me, right? The principal or the partner. And it's my book of business, and these are my relationships in comparison to we are all here for the firm and the firm's entire portfolio. Can you say some more about the kinds of shifts culturally that you are making to help people grasp that distinction? What kinds of challenges has that created for you in moving forward with this broader concept?
Yeah, some of the challenges that maybe historically have been, having too much geographical office focus versus a service line focus. And so that's something we are very intentionally doing differently as we speak. Megan on this call can even attest to it, and a lot of the work that we're doing to kind of restructure our mindset based on service line versus geographical office, meaning from a procedural and a cultural perspective. Are we more service line focused, and then rewarding collaboration between those service lines, is key to making kind of the stewardship model of the client, relating to the client, making that work, to allow partners to say, I'm a steward of the client. We have these service lines and partners that are doing great things. I'm going to attach multiple services, which includes teams of people doing different things across a firm to a client. In a geographical office mindset, a lot of times you're incentivized to, I want to keep the service or keep what we're going to do for this client within my team, my office, my geography, my even service line. Even as we build service line mindset, we have to be careful not to just, create kind of a silo mentality within a service line. We've got to emphasize the collaboration and stewardship factor, even as we build service lines. So moving from a geographical office mindset to the service line, and emphasizing and then rewarding through the partner compensation system, the collaboration and stewardship mindset, I think is the key piece. If that makes sense.
Well, it makes sense to me. I think your colleagues are the ones for whom it really needs to make sense. So, an interesting side note, when we asked you if you would be our kickoff presenter for this new Succession series, you were literally days away from taking a sabbatical in the middle of tax season, and you're one of the tax guys. How did you manage to accomplish that?
So let's clarify a couple of things there. That is all true. 3 years ago, I stepped into the managing partner role or CEO role at Dolby, and as a partner group, we talked about that for quite a few years. But led up to 3 years ago, saying, we would like Chris to step into the CEO role and be completely firm focused. And so that's kind of the first time in our firm's history where we've had a kind of a true managing partner or CEO where the firm is the only and sole client of the managing partner. So I had gone through a lot of transitioning prior to that of clients. And so my tax season, my busy season, we like to call it opportunity season, is not that busy when it comes to client deliverables. And so I was behind in taking our sabbatical taking the sabbatical 3 years behind. And I told my board, probably the best time for me to get my sabbatical in is while you guys are all busy and then don't have to bug you. And so I did take a sabbatical between February 15th and April 15th, the first time any partner in our firm has taken a sabbatical during that time frame. And I thank you though for mentioning it, Mary, because I think our sabbatical program, I think, is also a wonderful succession planning tool. Now we've had it on as a benefit for probably a couple of decades as far as our partner benefit package, but to have a partner take two months off straight and to force them to do that and unplug, get away, no email app, no call into the office. That forces other partners, other people, other members of the firm to step up and do things that they may not do otherwise. And it forces that partner on sabbatical to start understanding what it's like to retire. And so, and there's some partners that, not naming names, and won't do that, of course, but that find it hard. They kind of grew up in the office, and so that's all they know. And so I think the sabbatical has been a nice thing to kind of kick the partner out of the office and say, go do something different and start to feel like what it might be like during retirement. And I think that's been a helpful thing to ease partners into retirement and allow others to step up as part of the succession of the firm.
So what did you learn on your sabbatical?
I learned I still know how to ski.
Oh, good.
I grew up skiing, loved skiing, in the Aspen area and here at Powderhorn locally. But for the last 20 to 22 years, I have not skied because of tax seasons, primarily. Now I know some of our people, they make it a point, and appropriately so, to go ski during tax season, and we're trying to make that happen more. But I just for some reason fell away from skiing, so I went back up and skied and realized I could still do it. So that was fun.
And you didn't break?
A lot of hiking as well, and a little bit of traveling, and just doing stuff around the house, and self-improvement and home improvement is what I call it.
Congratulations, and how lovely that you came out of it with no broken bones.
Yeah.
I invite anyone on the call to raise your hand or to unmute yourself and ask a question. I will keep this going if we don't get anything in the chat, because of course I do have lots of questions I can ask, Chris, but I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask. So I'm going to be quiet here and I'm going to count to 10. Jump in. Okay. People are.
Everybody was mesmerized.
Well, it's a lot to absorb, right? And a lot to think about, which is the whole point of doing this succession series. So, Chris, what's one thing you wish you had known before you said yes to becoming CEO of the firm and making the firm your sole client?
That's a good question. Well, I guess what jumps to mind, and maybe I had an idea that this was going to be the case, but maybe to the extent I wasn't quite sure, but it is there's a loneliness factor to it. And, you kind of go from, and I've got a great team at the operations level here in the firm, HR and our operations manager, our firm administrator, and a great team that we spend a lot of time together. But a lot of times as the CEO, it's just the decision-making process and kind of making change, and it's not as maybe plugged into the client deliverable part of the firm. Growing up 22 years doing that and then changing gears, felt pretty lonely. So if I would have known it was going to be as lonely, I don't think it would have changed my mind, but I would have been maybe better prepared.
Yeah, that old saying, "It's lonely at the top," is very true, isn't it?
Oh, there's something to that, but again, it's I've got a lot of good people behind me and with me, and together we make this happen. It's just, I guess, it's quite a different change.
Yeah,
It's quite the change.
relationship shifts for sure.
Yep.
You're a different one of the gang, right?
Yep.
The way it used to be. So, a piece of advice for people who are close to moving into retirement, what would you tell them?
A piece of advice for those close to going into retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So a partner, let's say at the partner level, close to retirement.
Yes.
Well, if you haven't taken a sabbatical or have that as part of something that your firm provides, doing something along those lines, I think would be important. If you've never, now I'm 40, about to be 49, so I'm not close to retirement yet, but in just witnessing and talking to some of our retired partners and other CEOs in the firm, just taking some time before retirement, taking some time to away from the office, not just 2 weeks vacation, trying to make it significant and understanding what is it that you'd like to do, involved in community or nonprofit endeavors, what are hobbies, skills, just understanding if being at home with your spouse is what your spouse wants.
Sure.
So taking that time to maybe try out what retirement could feel like, I think, before you actually do it, it seems like good advice to me. I hear that quite often.
So there are 2 last questions here. Bronca says, could you go over the retirement comp again, please, and the method to which you are switching? So
we're in the process of switching to, and it's not final yet, so just make that clear, but of switching to a multiple of compensation method. So the easiest way I know how to explain it is kind of going back to the example I think I went through roughly or crudely during the talk, which is you look at a retiring partner's compensation over the last 5 years. Some firms may go back longer than that, maybe 10 years. I don't think I've seen a formula that goes back longer than 10. But you look at some look back period from the date of retirement, looking back 5 years or 10 years. And then you select the best 3 out of that 10-year period or 3 out of the 5-year period, the highest, when I say best, I guess highest compensation for that partner. And then the average of those 3 years is what you would then take and multiply by some factor. So that's just as an example, if the average compensation, the average of the 3 highest years was $300,000, and you take that times 3, if the multiple was 3, then that would be $900,000 as this dollar amount that gets paid out over 10 years, $90,000 a year for 10 years. So that's kind of a basic way to look at a multiple of compensation method. It's easy, it's clean. It still has a lot of bells and whistles tied to it when you get into, well, what happens if there's a clawback? What happens if there's a full equity partner that switches to income partner? Then maybe they scale back. It happens quite a bit these days in firms. Equity partner that scales back their life and time commitment and want to kind of wind down, if you will, but they want to do that as an income partner for maybe 5 years before retirement. So you got to think through maybe how you're going to handle certain scenarios, when a partner retires. But that multiple of compensation is kind of the gold standard right now. If you look at all of the compensation consultants in our industry, that's in the surveys of firms, kind of our size and even less than our size, and even the top 100 firms, you see a lot of multiple of compensation methods. And that's the simplest way I know how to explain it. What's the best 2 out of 3 out of 5, the average of times a multiple. And that essentially is trying to calculate the value of that partner's ownership interest in the firm. In a very simplistic way. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you very much. We are at time, and I so appreciate, as I know everyone on the call does, you sharing your picture of how it works at Dalby Wendland with all of us, and your wise counsel about the things to pay attention to. Thank you for coming back from sabbatical healthy and able and willing to participate today.